Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you on this April 11th, 2025. And this is your morning rush. Here are all the stories I have for your rush hour ride to work. And by the way, give yourself a pat on the back. Really, we did it. We made it to Friday. We stuck together and we figured it out. And now it's just about time for happy hour at this point. Spike your coffees. Well, I won't tell your boss. Anyway, here's what we have to you today. We have a Weezer update. The bassist of Weezer, his wife shot at police officers and was arrested for attempted murder. Now he's saying, hey, I'll be at Coachella on Saturday. I'll share that interview that they got on the street outside of his house. Plus this sad helicopter accident, we'll talk about that, happened in the Hudson in New York City. And a couple Bachelor Nation stories as one man pleads guilty. I'll tell you to what. And we have Bachelor star Maria Georges telling us she snuck her cell phone onto the set of The Bachelor. And Blake Lively has responded. Big story here. We've been waiting for this. This is the big story. Blake Lively responds to the motion to dismiss. I'll read a little bit of that intro for you. In our later video today, we'll cover it more extensively, but we'll get all the meat and potatoes out there for you. And then some conversations about the stock market, insider trading, and then I'll answer some of your fan mail. That's right. I'll respond to some questions and concerns from our audience. So what a great way to start a Friday morning. All these stories and more happening right now on The Rush. All right, let's ease into this episode with a couple Bachelor Nation stories. Here's our queen Bachelor star Maria Georges on the Casual Chaos podcast, telling us she snuck a phone onto the set. Have a listen to this.
I could probably get in trouble for saying this, but I don't care because don't keep me away from my family. I paid a couple housekeepers to use their phones whenever we'd be in hotels. And it's so funny. I would tell the girls, and I'm like, did you guys try to get a phone? And they're like,
did you have money? You just had cash.
We had cash.
Okay.
I brought cash in case I knew we might be traveling, and I just had it. And luckily, so the first hotel room we were in, oh my God, I paid like $50 once for 10 minutes to use their phone. One time I got into a convenience store for 2 seconds with my producer. She had to go to the bank next door. And I was like, oh my God, this is so bad.
Oh, this is
hilarious.
hilarious.
Does she even know this? I don't even know if I've ever told her.
All right, so anyway, you can go get all the tea there from the Casual Chaos pod. I think that's genius. You slip a couple bucks to the housekeeper, and next thing you know, you can watch a Dave Neal video. You want to just listen to the podcast. I think this is so rubbish that they don't let them have their phones. Just because it's I think if you can help get them feeling, and I understand the reason they don't let them use their phones, because obviously they don't want anyone communicating, but it leads to people not wanting to be on the show. I mean, they lost Maria. She decided not to be on the show in part because she didn't want to go without her phone. This is the modern generation here. All right, well, you want to get into the conversation of creeps. Former Bachelorette contestant James Taylor ordered to stay out of Northgate. The 38-year-old pleaded guilty on Wednesday to assaulting and restraining a 19-year-old female college student after meeting her at a bar. This is really scary stuff. He was sentenced to 80 hours of community service, a $750 fine, $350 in court costs, anger management classes in order to have no contact with the victim. He was banned from the Northgate Entertainment District as part of his punishment. So he was arrested back in August of 2023 following an investigation by police. And according to that arrest report obtained by KBTX, he met the student at a bar in College Station's Northgate District in April. The two went back to a condo in Bryan where the woman told police she became uncomfortable and tried to leave. She told investigators that after the two kissed, his demeanor shifted, becoming very serious and intense. Either way, it's a super frightening story. I mean, this guy is a solid dirtbag, okay? This is also the guy that was trying to rally people to go to January 6th. And then when he was called out for being part of the insurrection, he actually turns out was skiing in Colorado or something like that. So 38 years old, hanging out at the college bars. Double thumbs up. Cool, man. All right, so let's move it on from there. Boy, this is a scary story. Reagan National Airport. Planes clip wings with members of Congress on board. It could have been way worse. More air traffic control problems at Reagan National Airport. My question was, maybe the planes didn't realize how heavy they were from all of the insider trading going on with members of Congress. All of those new investments they received from the insider trading. Did that weigh the plane down? I don't really know how it works. Otherwise, they got to fix this. There should be 0 planes touching each other in any airports in our country at the very least, as far as I'm concerned. Fix that. Well, here's just a sad story. I don't know if this is preventable or what. In New York City, a helicopter crashed into the Hudson River. All 6 people on board were killed. It was caught on camera. I'm not going to share the video. It's been making the rounds online. And it just plummeted from the skies. I'm guessing there were some mechanical issues. I think witnesses said they saw pieces breaking off in the air. So again, just a real tragic circumstance there. All 6 people passed. All right, again, and not to bum you out with these stories, these are just what's big in the news, but here we have Weezer bassist wife, Jillian Lauren, was released on $1 million bond after allegedly opening fire. So this is just a wild story. We covered this yesterday, but police were in Eagle Rock in Los Angeles looking for a suspect from a hit and run, and then all of a sudden they see her, I guess, brandishing a weapon. Here's just a bit of the audio from the 911 dispatch call.
Roger, the female suspect was the one that shot at us.
2 FV-67s, code 6 on the outcall.
All right, so if you didn't hear that, the cop says that the female suspect shot at them, and then according to the updates, the investigation revealed evidence such as shell casings, video footage, and again, honestly, maybe there's ring cam footage where she didn't know that it was police and they were entering her property. I have no idea because when you look at the next video, you go, how the hell would she have even interacted with police? She lives behind this gated wall. So this is the Weezer bassist Scott Schreiner said, my wife is fine after being shot by cops. So that's what happened. His wife shot at the cops and then they shot her. She's okay. He is going to be performing at Coachella tomorrow. Boy, nobody wants to miss Coachella. So either way, watch this. Obviously, it's a TMZ and then Inside Edition. All of the paparazzi are there. It's kind of a big deal. They're all there waiting for him as he's walking his dog.
Morning, how are you today?
How are you doing?
Good to see you guys.
How's your wife?
She's all right, thanks, you guys.
Is there anything you can tell us about what happened yesterday?
No, not at all. I can't talk to you guys.
How do you feel about your wife being arrested for attempted murder, Scott?
You know what? I can't comment on that, you guys.
Is she doing? Have you talked to her?
How are you?
Oh yeah, of course.
Isn't this the nicest guy? He's like, sorry, pal, I just can't help you. Is he Canadian? Scott Schreiner must be Canadian. He's like, I can't help you, pal. This is a legal matter. I mean, my wife shot a cop. What do you want me to do? Give you guys the tell-all story in front of the eucalyptus tree?
And is she doing okay? Is she recovering?
Yeah, she's all right. Thanks for asking, you guys.
Is she badly injured?
See you guys.
Can you tell us anything
Are you
else?
going to be
No, I
playing
cannot.
Coachella on Saturday?
How
sir?
are you feeling? I know
See you
you're
at Coachella.
There he says, I'll see you at Coachella. Now, so this is, I'm assuming, the gated entrance to his either community or his house. I don't really know. I'm sure Weezer's made some of that Beverly Hills money, even though he's in Eagle Rock. Can't afford Beverly Hills, even though they made some money there. Chillin' in Beverly Hills, whatever. So he's the bassist. Does he even know the lyrics? Ding, 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 ding. Either way, I want to see the body cam footage. I'm not saying she didn't shoot at the cops, but like were they like crouching in her bushes looking for a hit and run guy, and she's brandishing a weapon, not knowing who they were? Now they claim they told her to drop the weapon. This is Eagle Rock. Los Angeles is dangerous. Does she know that these were police? Again, I don't have answers to this, but we will see. And you might be saying, Dave, you're giving her so much of the benefit of the doubt. I just can't imagine somebody just, the wife of a famous rock star shooting off at the cops. Some Yosemite Sam, I just can't imagine that. We'll have to see. Well, here's some irony for you. Russell Brand is not going to be speaking at a Florida college. He was supposed to be speaking at New College of Florida, which, by the way, never heard of it. No offense to New College of Florida. Can you even get a job after attending this school? I mean, don't sue me. Not that they would know how to. I'm sure. Do they have a law program there? Either way, he was supposed to speak at the Spring 2025 Free Speech, Civil Discourse, Fearless Dialogue. And, of course, that's not happening. As he's been charged with some pretty serious crimes in the UK. So that's how it works. And speaking of being charged with crimes, or I guess, I shouldn't say charged with crimes. No crimes, I guess, committed here. Or maybe, were they? I don't know. The police were called on Tyreek Hill. He's separating from his wife. I think she's filing for divorce. But I'm going to share this story with you next. All right, this is such a bummer because, this guy Tyreek Hill, he's one of the fastest men in the world. He's a superb athlete, but he's clearly got problems. So before I even get into this current situation, in case anyone wonders if it's a he said, she said, he was arrested for domestic violence and released by Oklahoma State back in 2014. The guy's got a rap sheet, you know what I mean? And we actually covered him earlier this year when he was arrested outside the Dolphins complex. And again, in that case, it looked like it was a little bit of police brutality, nothing to do with this. But here, his wife's mom called 911. I'm not going to share the phone call, but I will share WPLG Local 10 News in Florida. Here's what they had to say. As you can see from the high rise, Tyreek Hill leaning over the wall, probably to see if the cops were coming. Real scary stuff.
Exclusive video of Tyreek Hill on the balcony of his Sunny Isles condo Monday as police are responding.
Battery to the daughter. The subject is the husband on scene.
The call goes out. Police race to the Porsche Design Building in Sunny Isles Beach on Monday.
Subject is Tyreek Hill.
The mother-in-law of Miami Dolphins star wide receiver Tyreek Hill calls the cops. The call goes out as an assault in progress.
Subject black male wearing a white tank top.
When police get there, they make contact with Hill, his wife Keita Hill, and their child.
I'm ready for it.
They also speak to Tyreek's mother-in-law, Alicia Vaccaro. Let's get right to the police report. Quote, Vaccaro stated that Tyreek is very aggressive and impulsive, and that he has anger issues, and she is afraid for her daughter.
All right, so and he was throwing things. There was no physical abuse claimed, and they did a report. They ended up not charging him with anything, but I mean, it's just sad. It's just sad to see. I don't know if it's these guys, they get away with so much because they're star athletes, and sadly, he should be dropped from the team. And I don't know what'll happen. He's a superstar. So again, this is up to the people who buy tickets to see him play. What will they do? All right, well, let's move it on. Let's go to the court case involving Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Pretty big deal. This is going to be big today. I'm going to have a separate video where I read it in its entirety. I can't possibly do that here. It takes a long time. But here's Blake Lively's team responding to the motion to dismiss. Again, this is their response to Justin Baldoni's response to her motion to dismiss. I think I have that right. So I'll just read the introduction for you guys, and we'll paint the we'll paint the stage here, and then we'll get into it in our next video. The Wayfair parties have tied themselves, that's Justin Baldoni's side, in knots trying to state a defamation claim against Miss Lively that is not barred by the statute of limitations or wholly contained within her legal complaints, which they concede cannot form the basis of any actionable claims. They have been entirely unsuccessful. As a result, the Wayfair parties have hit the do-over button, reinventing their complaint to apply only to alleged statements from July to December of 2024, before Miss Lively filed her CRD complaint. If true, then the elaborate tale the Wayfair parties tell in their 391-plus paragraph complaint is largely irrelevant, because according to them, nothing that happened before July 2024, including the production and the cut of the film, is part of their defamation case. They've essentially admitted that their $400 million lawsuit was a PR stunt. By the way, whenever somebody says they essentially did X, Y, and Z, that's some pretty willful paraphrasing, but hey, that's what they believe. The Wayfair parties do not appear to understand the implication of their own concessions. Remarkably, the opposition continues to rely upon allegations they claim are not part of the case. The opposition's discussion on actual malice, for example, is based entirely on the complaint's effort to dismantle point by point the insinuations in the November 2023 17-point list, as well as the complaint's tired narrative that Miss Lively fabricated, materially mischaracterized, or grossly exaggerated all of the allegations she made in her CRD complaint and federal lawsuit. But because the Wayfair parties argue that they are not relying upon any alleged statement prior to July 2024, which would exclude the 17-point list, or two, the legal complaints which they agree are privileged, neither of these can support the element of actual malice. Moreover, the Wayfair parties stories once again focus on Baldoni's insistence that he believes he acted appropriately, rather than point to any facts indicating that Miss Lively subjectively doubted the truth of her alleged statements, whatever they are, and they ignore the plethora of evidence in their own pleadings that demonstrate her unwavering good faith. Unable to identify any actionable statements by Miss Lively, they argue she is liable for things her husband allegedly said. In 2025, wives are not responsible for their husband's words. It is incredible that Baldoni, a person who calls himself a feminist, would take such a position. Yikes! All right, so they're going to use whatever they can against him, and it's pretty wild because these sort of responses are both for the judge, but they're also for the audience as they try to jockey over who's, in the right and who's got the momentum moving forward. I tell you what, I'm going to finish reading this in its separate video. Some people want to hear all of it. Some people don't. I got to respect my audience here on the podcast. Not everyone is obsessed with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni stuff. But I think this is interesting. I think it is interesting to see the tone here as Blake Lively calls out Justin Baldoni's side for being a PR stunt, which, by the way, is very rich because Baldoni's side really is just responding to all of the attacks that have been made at him from her. But as far as the $400 million countersuit versus him responding to her suit or his suit with New York, and they're all kind of the same to a layman like me. As far as will one be dismissed versus the other, not sure. Not sure what the parameters will be for, the level of, the threshold of what needs to be proved for defamation here. Again, Justin Baldoni argued with Ryan Reynolds that defamation, I believe it's called defamation per se, means he doesn't have to prove any damages because just being called a predator was bad enough. But yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what else she has here. And then, of course, this afternoon, we'll continue to discuss this as people come out with their opinions and whatnot. All right, well, let's quickly go into the stock market. Here's AOC responding to the questions about insider trading that have happened between her colleagues. Have a listen to this.
Seems to be doing, from tweeting people to buy stock and then later announcing his development on taxes. If people are pissed about insider trading here at the House, look at what's happening at the White House right now and with the Republican Party.
Do you think he knew what he was doing when he sent out that message about stocks before he made the announcement?
It sure seemed like he did. I don't think that it was a coincidence. I don't think that Trump just coincidentally said buy stocks and then shortly later made an announcement that dramatically inflated and dramatically raised a lot of these asset prices. And, I've heard murmurings on the floor that there may have been people that knew that this was coming. And I'm very interested in seeing some of the stock disclosures that come out when those reports are due. And I'm very interested in what members of Congress have been buying and trading stocks in the last 24 hours prior to this terrorist.
Yeah, aren't they busy enough? Aren't they busy enough where they don't have time to be buying and trading local stocks? I don't know about you guys. My strategy is I set it up weekly, and an amount goes into a mutual fund weekly. It's the same amount. I try not to look at it too much. But what's interesting is after the stock market kind of had its rally 2 days ago, it started to crash again yesterday. And as of today, it's starting to look even bad. I mean, just to pull it up, the futures, because it's before the market is going live here, we're in the red again. So we'll have to see if there's going to be any turning this puppy around. It's about flatlined right now. So we'll have to see, but it fell 3.25% yesterday, the S&P 500. So interesting stuff. All right, let's reset the deck, and I'm going to answer some audience questions. Well, one thing I've learned with my podcast as we ventured from Bachelor Nation news to pop culture to then covering politics and other big stories is, it's hard to get it right. it's easy to get it wrong. It's easy to miss part of a story. I'm a one-man shop. I just try to talk to you guys from my heart. And I had a question that was asked of me yesterday that I wanted to share my answer with you guys. And so let's get into that. This was a question from one of our audience members, specific question. Why do you weigh in on Khalil/Miss Rachel, but never mention Hirsch or Eden? Now, I want to preface this next sort of part of the conversation that this is going to be like an open-ended response. When it comes to communication, we all need to be aware that we have blind spots. We can't see them because they're a blind spot. And when I cover a story that might be about, due process in the United States when we're deporting protesters, the blind spot I think that I have is not really realizing that some of my audience might think that that means I don't care about something else. So I had to ask this person, sorry, look, I don't know who you're talking about. I get about 10,000 comments a day. I probably respond to 50 of them. And with this person, we ended up having a very long back and forth because I wanted to use this as a teachable moment for my audience, but also for me to have this conversation. So specifically, she's asking about the hostages that are in Gaza. So of course, with the war that's going on in Gaza, I've been beginning to talk about it a little bit. What I've learned is there will always be people that are very upset when you talk about a war because it's impossible to cover all of it as extensively as one might like, especially someone like me who it took a very long time to sort of learn about the intricacies of not just the war, but the history that led up to it, right? So there was a devastating event that happened in October. In fact, almost 2 years ago now. So here's the response I got from this person when we opened our conversation. Hirsch was a 23-year-old American Israeli. He was a peace activist and by all accounts, a wonderful human being. He was so loved and full of life. His mother and father, Rachel and John, are both incredible human beings and advocates for peace. I bet you would have loved them. Per CNN, on October 7th, Hirsch went to the Nova Music Festival in a rural area near the Gaza-Israeli border with his best friend to celebrate his 23rd birthday. And of course, if you keep on reading his story, it's heartbreaking. These are heartbreaking stories. So there were a ton of hostages. And again, I'm not here to educate people on the history. If you don't know about this, please go look into it. Of course, this is a several-year-long story. But according to the Washington Post, Hamas took 251 hostages, along with hundreds of thousands of people that were killed there on that specific day. They took them from Israel into Gaza. This is stuff that I sort of haven't covered because I wasn't covering on October 7th in 2023 all of this type of heavy news. It is heavy news, right? So it's very hard for me to even address this now because as I pick up the story of the protesters that are protesting the war because they, don't want any death to innocent lives. As I cover them, it's really more my coverage about due process in the United States. Of course, the living hostages, which if we scroll down, there are these are the hostages in captivity for 536 days. 21 remain, and you can hover over them. And there's Eden Alexander, the 21-year-old Israeli soldier and U.S. citizen. So no amount of my fighting for due process in the United States in any way whatsoever is meant to take away from the horrible, horrible atrocities of war. No amount of, and I can't possibly say this every single time I cover it, but I'll try to do a better job at summarizing it. Because if someone like this audience member feels really upset that I haven't covered this, what I have to realize is there must be a communication breakdown where some people might think because I haven't covered this, that I'm choosing sides. There are no sides to the death and destruction of innocent lives. Hamas is a terror organization. So put it this way. And again, this isn't me. This is me trying to relate this in the way my mind is working. If I was to be protesting the Iraq war, it went trillions over budget. American soldiers are being killed for what reason? They're looking for weapons of mass destruction. We don't even think they exist, right? All of that stuff. That doesn't take away from any of the victims of 9/11. So, of course, we had a terrible terrorist attack, right? September 11th, 2001, and that led to a war. And what happened with this terrorist attack is it's led to a war. And I think you should be able to criticize the war and not be considered a terrorist sympathizer. I think you should be able to do that because, and again, I don't know the exact numbers of how many people have been killed. It's frustrating because I can't tell you those numbers. I can cite sources and you can say, well, that's Hamas propaganda and this is that. So the best number I have, I believe, was from Reuters, and that shared, that there was, X amount of, 70% or whatever the number is of people that have been killed on the Palestinian side were under the age of 18, and a percentage are women and children and this, that, and the other. The innocent lives on one side of the border are as precious as the innocent lives on the other side of the border. So criticizing government cannot be conflated with being a sympathizer for a terrorist organization. And of course, when I take this stance that I feel so strongly that we need to speak up against the atrocities of innocent lives killed, that is not to say those innocent lives aren't also these hostage victims. I mean, the stories are absolutely terrible, to the point where I've tried to sanitize it as much as possible because I don't believe this is the program to go into the details of that all. But I'm just asking people to keep your heart open to all of the innocent victims that exist, both those living and dead, and the families of those. So in response to this audience member that was basically asking me to say, hey, she said this, I'm not asking everyone or anyone to feel as deeply as I do, but for you to not know their names while being a fervent defender of Khalil and Miss Rachel, you haven't said a word about them or any of these countless innocent hostages. I find that really difficult to understand. So I can swallow that, and I can understand that to somebody who doesn't understand why I haven't covered the specifics of the hostages. I'm late to the party in discussing the atrocities that exist. Absolutely. Gosh, the social media videos that came out, the savagery of the attacks. I mean, when we look back on 9/11, you see a tower and you see it fall down, and there's some videos of some people falling from the towers and, the explosions, but we didn't have the access to the literal live streams in the content of people being kidnapped and killed and all these other things. It's a terrible time to witness all of that. And I think on one level, it feels above my pay grade because the war is so complex in that, Hamas, the terror organization, is hiding these hostages under hospitals, in tunnels, near schools. And then also, I just can't stand by collateral damage to the extent it's being done, especially as our government funds it. So that's what's very complicated about this. To answer that any simpler, I don't know if I could, but of course, there's no bone in my body from anyone who's listened to me throughout the years that sees anything but a pacifist who wants us all to get along, of course. But we can't just say, oh, well, all these Palestinians need to go in service of what? Finding the bad guys? Sure, they need to find these bad guys. But all the studies that I've read about and reported on are that Hamas has already repopulated with new people that feel martyred, and it just doesn't. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's for sure. But at the very least, to these people that are there, alive still, I think it's 24 men, right? Yeah, our hearts go out to them. I just assumed we all were on that same side. I believe most people are. And I think what the struggle is it's so easy to say, well, if you support Palestine and all of the innocent people over there, then you're supporting Hamas. And I just reject that. I reject that. But I do now understand why so many people don't talk about this, because it's very easy to be silenced. It's easy to be silenced because you don't want to get it wrong. There's a lot of propaganda out. There's like a lot of things, conflicting. And when I do talk about it, I get boatloads of messages from people appreciating that I'm talking about it. My only ask for the person who was, kind of criticizing me for not covering it is to just understand it's tough. And it's easy for this person that, they don't want to be identified, and I understand that. But imagine when you go in front of the camera and you just try to discuss it in a way that doesn't lead to attacks, and not because of my own ego that I don't want the attacks, but because I don't want to get it wrong. It's a heaviness to it. So all I can tell people is find trusted sources and try to find news that you trust, because that's what I try to do. When I read about this war, I try to find people that I trust to see what they're talking about and how they're covering it. And at the very least, I believe in the bottom of my heart that too many innocent people are dying. So when it comes to Miss Rachel, when it comes to Khalil, when it comes to the Palestinian the PhD student at Tufts University and other protesters, I don't think they're having their due process stripped away. Not Miss Rachel, but the others. I don't think that is something I can let go in our United States of America. Already, our country is working with Israel to actively try to get these hostages removed. I don't know what else I can say about that other than I fully support their safe return. I hope this makes sense. Sadly, as I say all of this, I don't feel like this helps anybody whose opinion is that I'm of a certain way. I don't see that changing at this stage in the game, but I wanted to at least give it a fair shot. It's a tough way to end on the Friday. I did want to share one more story with you guys. Let me see if I can pull it up. It's a wild story, actually, which is sort of related. It's a breaking news story. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that the Trump administration has to facilitate the return of a Maryland man who was falsely deported. This is what I talk about when I talk about due process. Again, when it refers to the war in Gaza situation, fighting for due process doesn't take away from any fight towards hostages, but I do understand the commenter wanting a statement from me. I do understand that. Here's what ABC News has to say.
Breaking news right now. The Supreme Court will require the Trump administration to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That's the Maryland man who was sent to El Salvador by mistake, despite having protected legal status, preventing his deportation to El Salvador, where he escaped political violence back in 2011. Abrego Garcia was sent last month to that country's notorious mega prison following what the government said was an administrative error. Our Devin Dwyer joins us now with more on.
So then they get into the fact that the Supreme Court ruled 9-0, which is insane because a lot of the rhetoric that has come out of the Trump administration has been that these woke judges, these activist judges, they're not doing the work. We need to impeach these judges. I don't know the exact number. I think Trump has 3. I think 3 of the Supreme Court came from Trump's first term, right? He's got a majority as far as conservative judges. And some of those judges are wildly conservative. I don't know how often they vote 9-0, but this is an absolute loss for the Trump administration. Now we get to watch and see if the Trump administration listens to the Supreme Court and actually gets this guy back, this Maryland man, back to his family or not. If he defies the order, we'll have a whole different situation on our hands. That's when democracy really is at risk. So when we talk about all of these things, it's not to scare people. It's just to show how important it is that we take a stand and draw a line in the sand to say this is the side we want to be on. And I hope my positions have become very clear. And if there's any questions, people can feel free to reach out. Just let's all give each other the benefit of the doubt that we're trying our best here. All right. Coming up next, Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni. I'll be reading that court case. And then this afternoon, I got more content. I got crazy Bachelor stories we didn't even get to. So we'll do that all this afternoon. We'll see you then. Be kind out there. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.